So I've been playing TRAG. Hey, kids. Today I will teach you all about a crazy little game called TRAG. Or Hard Edge, as it was called in the realms outside of America, which also just so happened to be the realms that I exist in, thank fucking god. As did developer Sunsoft, widely known for not really being known much at all. They're essentially one of those Japanese shadow companies who largely live off of getting contracted to do ports off of spin-off games like the Final Fantasy Legend titles, and also by doing some behind-the-scenes semi-credited dev work on various games, like the Final Fantasy Legend series, and also Clock Tower 3, which is far more relevant to the game that I'm discussing today. See, when Sunsoft saw the success of the likes of RE1, Final Fantasy VII, and Parasite Eve, it sought to break away from the shackles of its shadows to make a combined clusterfuck sin spawn, i.e. Hard TRAG. A game that would use the traditional survival horror structure of RE, the cool action movie plot sensibilities of Parasite Eve, and the modern era near-future urban bourbon interior designs of Final Fantasy VII. And so it stars a bunch of spiky-haired anime abnormalities and deformities who are part of the anti-terrorist team TRAG. And wouldn't you know, some terrorists have just so happened to take over a giant skyscraper that was also a militarized research facility thing.
Hey! You over there! Help me! Please!
What the fuck? Structurally, TRAG is just like RE1 or 2. You get the statue puzzles, the key cards, the passcodes, the random amulets, and everything that you'd expect in a game blatantly ripping off Resi. You obviously need to backtrack a bunch as well, as the entire skyscraper functions much as one big puzzle box where solving one thing in one room will unlock something in the other, which in return will then allow you to unlock something else. Where things start to differ, however, is with the fact that this isn't a horror game, thus giving combat a much larger focus, and that you also end up amassing a JRPG-style party of sorts, including the likes of Alex, the main character man with the poignantly pointy hair who has a gun and can use night vision goggles. Michelle, Alex's trusty partner in crime who has a knife and no additional features other than her polyboobs. Rachel, a young android girl.
Well, actually, I'm a cyborg.
Oh. Okay, Cyborg, I'm sorry, who fights with Tom Fuzz and can crawl into tight spaces like vents. And finally, the best bae, Burns Byford, the only motherfucker worthy of a last name who can move heavy objects and talks like this.
You're one of the most wanted men in the country, Gashu, and today I'm bringing you in. Ho, ho, ho.
As these wee descriptions may have clued you in on already, you can switch between these people through menu in order to make your way through the many floors of this building. Small child can be off in a puzzle room, for instance, triggering a trap, so then Michelle has to ninja dash her poly ass on over to switch to trap breaker override or whatever, though not before Burns moves the large crates blocking the door. Stuff like that. Anyway, while their inventories aren't universal entirely, being that they get paired up into two inventory duos, puzzles can slightly overlap as demonstrated here by Michelle finding an observable passcode that you need to enter into a PC as Alex. Surprisingly, it's actually almost kind of neat.
Okay.
TRAG's combat is about as good as it looks, being not quite bad, but also still quite bad. Something right off the bat that's pretty indicative of this is the fact that even the sheer act of walking already sucks. This is one of those games with tank controls that have a really broad turning arc while walking, yet a very fast one while spinning in place. Add to that this bizarre ass, frame dip momentum, meaning that your character slightly jitters before starting its walk cycle proper, and you end up with a game where it's real easy to overshoot where you were going due to the constant stopping and starting caused by the tank controls and the rapid speed increases turning-wise caused by what I just mentioned. You feel more like a slow-ass fucking mech the way you have to vaguely commit to a certain trajectory the moment you start running. And to add insult to small dickery, the way that TRAG handles its camera angles is just off. I don't know, it's hard for me to explain, but just look at how much trouble I had figuring out the geometry of this small-ass space. The camera angles don't quite link up to form one cohesive whole, I suppose, nor do the background layers really function as intended either. And finally, to top all of this off, the devs also saw it fit to slather every wall in fucking wank cream and pig lard, as instead of stopping when you hit a wall, you straight up slide alongside it, making it very hard to line oneself up in order to open door or examine painting. Now, imagine that, but with enemies who are big enough to hide your model entirely.
Great!
Honestly, comment-wise, things are pretty much okay. As awkward as a prom date at a funeral for sure, but it would seem that the combat is surprisingly aware of what type of game it's being used in. I mean, the enemies won't ever attack you from off-screen and will only aggro once right in face, and while characters do play more or less exactly the same, being that square is always the default attack button and that you can pull off different attacks by dashing or while walking backwards, the lock-on and the fact that shit's meaty, fast, and juggly as fuck actually made it fun enough to fuck with. Despite the fact that Alex misses his shots 90% of the fucking time and the fact that melee lacks traction, causing you to stand in place, thus punching the air a bunch, the entire game seems to be built around this, and so all enemies are lobotomized punching bags who drop hella health and ammo, and it's not an elegant solution by any means, don't get me wrong, but it keeps TRAG from being an otherwise frustrating mess, and instead just turns it into a mindlessly fun, brain-dead Onimusha beta kind of mess. I actually dig it. So, there isn't any horror, nor is there any survival. Alex's ammo never dip below 200, inventories are endless, and just about every room seems to be topped up with health pills. So, what do you do then? Well, just kinda dick around, explore, and solve puzzles mostly, as the Togusa building is laid out quite well. The main chunk of the game is spaced out as follows. You get two main floors of the building, both separated by an east and north wing RE mansion style. Two characters are stuck on one floor and the other two are stuck on the other. And as stated, you can switch between them freely to solve intertwining puzzles that give way to a very satisfying sense of progression. Like, you'll enter a big hallway lined with doors. Some of these doors will be open and will contain some punching bags, goodies, and interesting scenery and lore, and the others will be locked. But at the very end of the hallway, there will be one bigger room with a puzzle of some sort. This could be a Simon Says or a statue twister or an amulet bangle banger, etc. And then, upon solving this puzzle, you'll be rewarded with whatever card key that was needed to open the closed doors, thus allowing you to jog on back, giddy with anticipation regarding the zany ass shit what these doors could hold. You know, stuff like this. But then, oh no, however will I open this electronic door? Stumped as you are, you'll switch back to the other duo to then bumblefuck around on the lower floor in a similar manner and, like, activate the power to the door and so on. It might not sound like anything special when described as such, but the game moves very fast, has fun enough combat that isn't shoved in your face too often, and also just the way that everything looks and sounds like a somehow even cooler Shinra building with its opulent interiors, fancy steampunk PCs, cheeky wireframe interfaces, and sexy potted plants makes incrementally uncovering this oddly designed building a lot of fun to do. Plus, TRAG also utilizes shortcuts and loop-arounds in a very cool way, being that even very late into the game you'll still end up opening hatches that'll lead to ladders leading back down to the first area-ish, and the individual puzzle pockets, as it were, are also small and self-contained enough to where it always felt like I knew where I was going and what I was doing, thus making getting there all the more satisfying. This game ain't fucking around with no descriptionless emblems burning holes in your tiny-ass inventory for most of the entire fucking game. Shit's snappy, engaging, cleverly designed, and nonchalantly ripped straight out of RE2. And so, yeah, it's an okay good game that just so happens to be made kind of poorly overall due to what I can only assume to be a lower budget and varying levels of competence on the technical side. Still, this may very well be the most PS1-ass game ever created. Its very existence comes from the fact that they ripped off both FF7 and RE, and so, for better or worse, it also very much feels like a combination of both. I don't know how they managed this, but every single fucking line of dialogue is legit gold.
Miguel!
I'm honored you remember my name. I detest liars. Hand over the disc, and I promise I shall release the professor.
Also, I swear that Michelle's voice actress changes between the opening FMV and the actual game somehow.
It's me. Michelle, look.
Where are we?
Aesthetically, in any case, shit's on point. I mean, you've been hearing the soundtrack throughout this entire review, and you love it. The character portraits are totes Gucci, and our two main fuckos look like anthropomorphized Galaga ships. I just really dig the Raccoon City Shinra building vibes as well. Sure, the bitmaps that they used may have been a bit too compressed, but they did manage to stick the entire 5-hour thing on a single disc, and there also isn't any freezing in between the screen transitions, which I don't think I've ever seen a PS1 game pull that off before, so yeah, good job, you guys. I guess.
With this disc, I shall become ruler of the entire world! Ah ha 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 ha!
Hold it right there, Miguel.
I mean, he's already gone though. Jesus Christ.